To our very first story this hour, and the National Democratic Congress is blaming the opposition NPP for the violence recorded in yesterday's by-election in Tallinn. At a press conference in Tallinn today, the party said the NPP knew it would lose the contest even before it was conducted, and to save itself the shame, the NEC claims the NPP, quote, sought to use subterfuge and all kinds of shenanigans to paint a very wrong picture about the electoral process leading up to the election. Albert Sorry was at the press conference and brought us this report. What has the party been saying? I'm talking of the NDC. What have they been saying at this press conference?
Well, they've been talking about how they won the election, and they said that they were properly organized, and they were comparing the fact that their national chairman and their own general secretary were here to support in the organization towards winning the election, when you cannot say same for the MPP. For example, Paula Popo was not exactly seen here. Kabna Japan was not also here. And these were the things that they were saying to, make the point that they were more organized towards winning the election than the NPP. But the NPP went into the election knowing that they were not going to win, and so they resorted to using all kinds of subterfuge and, in their own words, shenanigans to paint a very wrong picture about the electoral process leading up to the election.
Okay, Albert, I was just about asking you whether or not they in fact did touch on security. We were told there was a lot of chaos there. So obviously they touched on it from what you're saying.
If you can repeat the question again.
Okay, so I'm asking, are they in any way blaming the NPP for the chaos that erupted in the course of the day yesterday?
Yes, these accusations, and counter accusations have been going on. If you listen to the members of the NPP yesterday, in the course of all the violence that was happening, they were also accusing the NDC of perpetrating all these things. So. Essentially, that is what the NDC is also saying, that the NPP were making all these accusations because they knew they were going to lose. But it was they, the NPP, who had actually also perpetrated some violence. And they cited a number of examples, which I cannot immediately repeat. But one of the examples they cited was that vehicle that was vandalized in front of the NPP office, which we saw earlier. That vehicle actually belongs to the district chief executive for Busa North, Bonaventure Adangabe, who was also here. And they said that he was not even in the vehicle himself. He sent his driver and two other, to quote them, innocent boys to go and buy food in Tongo town. And they just saw the vehicle and then, attacked them. And they said that it was a miracle that the driver and the other gentlemen in the car escaped without any problem.
I see.
So these are some of the examples that they have been citing. One of the examples they cited to make the point that the NPP also perpetrated some, or the NPP rather perpetrated some violence against them.
Well, now heading to a former General Secretary of the NPP says the violent clashes in the Tallinn by-election are unfortunate. Now speaking to German News Correspondent Joseph Opokugapo, the former General Secretary called on the police to act professionally in dealing with the perpetrators.
I do not think that by-election of just one constituency demands that there should be machetes and guns and axes flying around anywhere. I think it is unfortunate, but more importantly, I think that if indeed these things have happened, the law enforcement agencies must show professionalism and non-partisanship and deal with such developments so that people may not have the incentive to repeat such very negative practices. I don't think it is good for our democracy. I think we have come so far. We should rather present ourselves as a good example, not as a bad example.
Meanwhile, the PNC's candidate, Wombiogo Michael Namalteng, is demanding a recount of the ballot. He believes if the ballots are recounted, there's going to be a vast difference in the certified figures that the Electoral Commission has announced. Now, according to him, most of the figures in the just-ended polls were manipulated. He spoke to my colleague Roland Walker on the AM show.
The results declared particularly in some of the main sections of the constituency, were not the true results. They were doctored before the declaration. And I want to believe that even the results are recounted ballot by ballot box, there will be a difference. I am not saying that I should have been the winner, but I think that there should have been a fairer result than we have now.
Especially on the subject of the results, polling station by polling station, did you have your agent also in those polling stations, and what numbers were they giving you that is at variance with what by the constituency was collated and approved?
You see, having agents and then not having agents sometimes there's no difference. Because these people managed to infiltrate my agent's camp, and how they did it.
I don't get you. You were saying that your agents were working against you?
No, not exactly. I am saying that they might have done something else within the police. Look, you see, maybe it is declared that this person has had 10 votes, and it is not only 10. It is not 10 that is written on the paper. And some, to be very frank with you, some of them were too young. They were the youth, and the kind of intimidation that took place in the constituency. Your correspondent just gave you the details. During the time of election, the agents complained several times of intimidation, complained several times of biases, and even look, there were some people who were not agents, they were not EC members, but they were found in the center of the election area and directing people how to vote. And that's what I'm telling you. I am telling you that, look, to be very frank with you, those results that we have there, if not because of some few individuals, I mean, they would have even been worse than the way they are.
Yesterday's poll was characterized with a lot of chaos and violence. Now, a situation many believe takes away from a rather relatively peaceful electoral process. Now, this challenge has become a notorious characteristic in Ghana's elections. Now, speaking earlier on Joy News Desk, political scientist and security analyst Dr. Manuel Roxas says the unfortunate situation is avoidable in the country's elections. Now, he blamed the problem on lack of commitment by the political leaders and the Electoral Commission.
The blame can be laid in front of the EC, that they should from now on, to prevent this, I mean, what has happened in Tallinn in 2016, the EC must begin to enforce the law and tell political parties what they must not do. And you see, politicians too must be aware that whatever money you give to a youth or whatever gun you give to a youth to engage the other party, if you don't take time, that same gun will be used on you. And that is what happened. Remember that in the Tallinn election, the violence was not only between Azoka boys and Bolga Bulldogs. It was between Afoko faction, Akufo-Addo faction, and NDC, Azoka boys. Because I understand that some of the Bulldogs were not recognized by Sami Awuku and John Boydu of the MPP. So they became violent against their own party gurus. So the violence, if you look at it, was not just between MPP and NDC. And because of the role of politicians in trying to influence the youth, who are they? What impact do they have on the party apart from causing mayhem and violence? Why do you have to engage them, the youth? They are not political think tanks. They are not political scientists. They are not polling for you. They are not doing any good to you, but only to cause mayhem and destruction when they get there. So why do you ask them? Why do you buzz them and give them money to come there? And I'm talking of all the political parties.
Meanwhile, some Ghanaians are of the view security agencies must be tough on persons who engage in violence during elections. They are also urging political parties to educate supporters on the need not to take the law into their own hands.
So what do you think the government can do to curb such violence?
As a sitting government, when it is time for election like that, he shouldn't involve himself into it like that, so that he can order or give an authority, leave the election to the security people, and then so that they will take care of the election, so everything will go on. But if the government himself involve himself in it, there are certain things that he cannot see to it that they will calm it down. So for my personal view, I would say that the government shouldn't involve himself into the election too much, so that there won't be any violence like that.
These two political parties, the NDC and the MPP, they are causing the most violence, especially in this election at Tallinn. So they should let them sign some document. You understand me? They should sign some document undertaking that will make sure everything will be peace. And the government must intervene, especially the national security, the police, whatever. They should beef them up. And if they can use cameras, especially cameras, the party office, there should be a national security camera in terms of this voting we are making, so that if something happens or some allegation comes, they'll go and take such gadget to prove to those who are doing that.
Look as if it has been occurring all the time. So I think while we have the electoral, some group who are in charge of the electoral policies, they have to enforce it. And the parties also have to go according to the procedures that they have set in place. I think if that thing is done, those things will never occur again.
I think they should beef up their security, and then the so-called people that they think they are the bulldozers that they are following them, they should also let them know that this is the situation. So this kind of thing can be taken out of the system. So that's the only thing that the government can do. They should beef up the security. That is it. And anybody who misbehaves, no matter where the political party the person belongs, just take him on and then prosecute him or that, so that such impunity will be out of the system.
Well, we can now speak to our Upper East Regional Correspondent, Albert Sorry. Well, we are told that some arrests have been made. Let's speak to Albert Sorry now and see whether we can get some confirmation of that. Albert, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. Is this indeed the case that the police has managed to make some arrests?
Well, I've just spoken to the regional crime officer, Superintendent Alex Asamoah-Frimpong. He says that they haven't made any arrests yet. They are still investigating. What he said was that in all the cases of the violence that were reported, the information they got was that groups of people carried out the violence. So, they can't just arrest people. They will have to do investigations that will lead them to some arrests. And as we speak, their men are in Tallinn, picking up information and doing their investigation. So depending on how the investigations will go, they will make some arrests. But for now, they haven't made any arrests yet.
But what's the state of security in Tallinn today? Well,
there's still a lot of police patrols in parts of the constituency. So that is what is happening. It's not as heavy as it was yesterday, but there is still police and a little bit of military presence in the constituency.
Okay. Albert Sorry, thank you very much for that update. Albert Sorry is our Upper East Regional Correspondent. Well, in a related development, former President Jerry John Rawlings is calling for the arrest and prosecution of all involved in the acts of violence that have plagued the Tallinn constituency by-election. President Rawlings said news of the situation in Tallinn is a matter of grave concern and that the law enforcement agencies should act with dispatch to apprehend all the culprits. Now, in a statement released by the former president's office, he said the security agencies must enforce the law without fear or favor or any political bias whatsoever. Well, General Secretary of the ICU, Solomon Kote, says the Mahama-led administration has lost control of managing the economy and has become instruction takers from the IMF. Now, kickstarts a demonstration against the melting down of the economy. He warned the economy could hit a snag.
any country that IMF has gone and that country have been liberated. Wherever they go, they leave the country in crisis and in chaos. As we speak now, they are saying you have hit your maximum. Don't recruit any more nurses. Over 2,000 nurses who are passed out are hanging out there and their services are needed. But IMF say don't continue to recruit. So for us, the managers have lost it. They are now become instruction takers, and that is what is happening to us in this country. With all the assurances, none have seen the light of the day. Let's assume that the hazards of the job is bringing out these things. But what is the refreshing element that is coming to the Ghanaian world? It's like every day we are being told the danger is still ahead, and that is what we can take from that.
So how far would you go with this?
Well, this is just the beginning. We will see how government will be proactive to respond to these issues. Their proactiveness will determine whether our plan B must come on course.
What is the plan B?
I can't tell you now.
Solomon Kote also described as criminal SMS charges on bank accounts. The Industrial and Commercial Workers Union say they want those charges scrapped.
Ultimately, we are seeking relief that this SMS tax that we are paying on our bank account when we have been paying our net salaries, and you go and do any withdrawal. Have you been seeing on your own, accounts? Yes, this thing must stop. It's criminal. Okay. Then again, we look at the way the overtime is also being taxed. We are saying, government, do something about the overtime tax for us. If even is given a concession of 50% that we pay, that'll be fine. Then finally, we'll be asking government to look at the entire PAYE, pay as you earn tax structure. It is killing us. They have lost the management of the economy. They are no more managing this economy. It is the IMF who is now dictating to us what must happen to us. Because if they have not lost it, initially they were going to IMF to come and clean the public sector system. Before the first tranche came, IMF said, I won't give it to you for that exercise. Take it to the Bank of Ghana to give value to the city. So it means the leakages you have.
Well, there's more news right after this. Don't go away. Well, you're welcome back. And one person is feared dead following the collapse of a bridge at Aikai Doblo near Amasaman. An articulated truck plying the road sank into the Dinsu River after the bridge caved in under its weight. DSP Elvis Bawa Sadongo is the Amasaman police commander.
Normally, these type of bridges are constructed with weight limitations. I am suspecting that this tipper truck loaded with chippings has exceeded the weight required to use this particular bridge. And so you see that the bridge caved in right in the middle. This bridge doesn't have support in the center of it. It just runs straight across the river. So it caved right in the middle. And it kept sinking gradually until the tipper truck is completely submerged now. During the process, the driver and one other person escaped, and I think one of his mates is trapped in there and is under the water as we are speaking. If he's under the water for the past 2.5 hours, it's very difficult to say what the situation is, but at least common sense will tell all of us that he's feared dead. Residents at both sides of the river would have to find alternative routes. And it's a very long detour from here to Obom. You don't need to go through there unless you want to go to Accra. But then if you have to come to Amasaman or Pokwasi to transact business, then you have to go through Obom. And you are looking at about 2 hours, 1.5 hours, sort of.
An IEA winner-takes-all report has described the Council of States as a laid-back and superfluous body. Now, the Council of States, it says, is a laid-back and superfluous body that's too much attached to the presidency. Well, that's according to the IEA's winner-takes-all report. The IEA set up an 11-member committee to re-examine Ghana's winner-takes-all system by engaging Ghanaians and civil society groups to make recommendations for amendments in Ghana's constitution. Former Shraj boss Justice Emil Short, who presented the first part of the report, said the Council of State could be effective if it is converted into an elected second chamber of parliament. Let's get more on this now. So what else is in the winner-takes-all report? And has there been any dissent regarding the proposals of this report? Joining me over the telephone lines now is Felix Akoyam, who is actually at the ground. So Felix, what more can you tell us?
Well, the winner takes or report is also recommending that members of the Council of State be elected from the regions. The report also says that the tenure of the Council of State members should be extended from 4 years to 6 years to overlap the president's term of office, which is 4 years. And the main role of the Council of State, if it becomes the second chamber, will be a legislative function. Moreover, the report is also expressing worry about the growing monetization and lack of accountability in Ghana's political system. So the committee tasked with this duty is proposing for a ceiling on how much political parties spend in electioneering, while the states provide some minimum funding to these parties. Quite apart from that, too, the winner-takes-all report is also suggesting that the appointment of MPs as ministers weakens the efficiency of Parliament. So they are suggesting that all ministers must come out from Parliament. But former Minister of State and MP, Hasman Osuajiman, disagreed with this assertion. For him, the parliamentary system is the best system of government and has proven to be effective in countries like the UK, Australia, and Singapore.
Thank you very much, Felix Akoyam, with that report. Now, ex-President John Agyekum Kufuor has advised the National Development Planning Commission to consult all political parties in its drafting of a 40-year grand development program that seeks to cause a significant transformation of the country by its 100th birthday. My colleague Fred Smith has the rest of the story.
The former president gave the advice when the NDPC called on him today after a similar call on ex-president J.J. Rawlings. According to the Director General of the Commission, Dr. Nimoy Thompson, the aim of their visit is to seek support from the former heads of state for the 40-year program, which is scheduled to end in 2057. He briefed former President Kufuor about the plan.
It's in fact possible to have a long-term national development framework. We can call it a plan or a framework similar to the Millennium Development Goals, for example, that will be binding on successive governments, but will also provide room for each government to come in with its own plan to work towards the goals and vision of this framework that we're working on. And so after much groundwork, and of course bear in mind your own passion for development. At some point you even set up a ministry responsible for economic planning and other. Bearing that in mind, we decided to come here to formally notify you of the fact that on August 4th, we will be launching a national process for gathering ideas throughout the whole country in the 10 regions, meeting with various organizations to eventually, within a year, produce a long-term national development plan.
President Kufuor advised the Commission to widen its consultation to include all political parties.
Effort at planning. You didn't mention the current, say, flag bearers.
Okay. Yes, most definitely. Oh, definitely, they are part of it.
Because I don't think you can tie the hands of any incoming leader. And we are a multi-party system of government. So it's necessary, and they are the active people.
Exactly.
Once you talk of the sitting president, you talk of the people who might challenge him. Me, I'm a retiree. I can only perhaps make an input, make a suggestion to you. But the people who may come in on their manifestos and with their ideologies and philosophies, it's very necessary to seek their opinion.
He also asked the Commission to draw up policy plans to tackle problems emanating from rural-urban migration.
Health Minister Alex Segbefia has assured Parliament he will commence investigation into circumstances that have led to the non-recruitment of medical doctors who have completed their housemanship yet remain unemployed for more than a year now. Alex Segbefia says though some of these doctors have been posted, a lot more has to be done in order to get the others recruited. He, however, blames the slow pace on the recruitment revision being undertaken by the government. Elton John Roby joins me live now from Parliament. So, Elton, what more has the minister been saying?
Well, he said that between from a total of 486 doctors, 268 newly trained medical doctors were posted from May between May and June 2015, while the remaining 218 were posted in September 2014. But he denied knowing that some doctors are still at home 1 year after completing their housemanship. He said he will look into this particular matter and then report back to Parliament. But he's assured that all doctors will be posted first to the teaching hospital and some regional hospitals before they are posted to the district hospitals. Now, he blames the situation on the recruitment revision that has been undertaken by government. According to him, because of the biometric registration process that has been implemented to ensure that they reduce the long delay in the processing of new recruits onto the national payroll and also facilitate their monthly salary, government has introduced this biometric registration process, which actually means that your data must be captured first before that data is sent to the controller and accountant general, so that you are paid promptly once you are recruited onto the national payroll. And this is meant to reduce the delay in the process. And this has in a way stalled the process. So, by his promise that he will look into the doctor's issue from the ones to get back to the ministry to ensure that those who are still at home waiting to be posted are done immediately.
Parliamentary correspondent Elton John Brobe there.
Welcome back. Time now for business. My name is Francisca Kakra-Forsen. In our first story, the Union of Industry, Commerce and Finance, UNICOF, has filed a suit at the Supreme Court challenging the commencement of the Agricultural Development Bank's initial public offer. UNICOF is seeking a number of reliefs, including a declaration that the sale of ADB shares without parliamentary approval is unconstitutional and violates Article 181. They want a declaration that government does not have the sole mandate to authorize ADB to sell shares of the public to the public and also trade on the stock exchange without parliamentary approval. You will remember the union earlier filed a suit at the High Court over the legality of the sale of the shares, which they say is unilateral. Minority MPs have also filed a suit at the Supreme Court over the breach of Article 181, which requires parliamentary approval for all international agreements. Let's look at other stories. And former Chief Executive of the Volta River Authority, Dr. Charles Reku-Brobe, is impressing on government the need for competitive bidding in the power generation sector. This, according to him, is the only way consumers can enjoy lower electricity tariffs. He was reacting to recent comments by a former British diplomat, Craig Murray, that the introduction of independent power producers in Ghana's power sector is the cause of the current power crisis. In an interview with Joy business editor Emmanuel, Dr. Reku-Brobe said the lack of transparency in the power purchase agreement is rather to blame.
When VRA used to have the whole control of generation, what made it work? Because they were supported by international organizations such as the World Bank, the issue of transparency was already built into how they operated. You know, all tenders were internationally advertised. People came in to put in their bids. The bids were evaluated. So one of the things you do best with that is that kind of transparency already elicits the best cost. And I think that kind of thing missing in our current system is the biggest problem that we have to face. It's not a problem of, you don't throw the baby out to the bathwater and say that IPPs are bad. Because if IPPs are bad, what is the next best option? I remember that we went and took out the Eurobond and spent a lot of money, a lot of that Eurobond on building power plants. I'm not sure that that was the best use of funds.
And that was Dr. Charles Reku-Brobe. Now, trading on Tuesday commenced on the Ghana Alternative Exchange in the shares of Meridian Marshalls Holding, the first educational institution to go onto the stock market in West Africa. Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Dr. Edwentry, at the launching of the ceremony, congratulated the company and charged SMEs to take advantage of the opportunities available on the local bourse via the Ghana Alternative Exchange.
Holding, with its pre-university, launched its IPO in April, seeking to raise 2.5 million cedis through the sale of 25 million shares at 10 pesos each. It, however, managed to raise 1.4 million Ghana cedis after an extensive public offer. But at the listing today, the company put on offer 22 million shares on the alternate markets of the Ghana Stock Exchange. Speaking to Joy Business after the listing, President of Meridian Marshals Holding, Dr. Tetenete, promised investors some exciting returns.
Well, the institutions that govern Meridian Marshals Holdings, they've dotted the I's and crossed the T's. They would not bring us to this level if they were not sure that we were going to do the right things. I know there are several educational institutions in the space that we operate, but not all of them have that many regulators as we have. We have the National Accreditation Board. We have Securities and Exchange Commission looking at us and regulating what we do. We have the Ghana Stock Exchange itself. And then car brokers, they are at the moment major shareholders. If you do the listing of 20 top shareholders, car brokers tops. So they will not sit down for you to just run it the way you want to.
Car brokers immediately after the listing bought 10,000 shares. Managing Director of the Ghana Stock Exchange, Kofi Yamwa, tells Joy Business the listing should encourage other educational institutions to come onto the market.
That is AFB, very similar to Izwe. They have submitted a share prospectus. The share prospectus means that they have served intention that over a period of time they will come to the market to be raising debt instruments capital. So far, the share prospectus talks about 100 million target over a period of time, and they are currently doing 3 tranches of that shelf, totaling 30 million Ghana cedis. We expect them to also be listed in due course of time. If not this July, then early August.
MMH's listing becomes the second company after Samba Foods Limited to list on the Ghana Alternative Exchange, created to provide a platform for SMEs to access long-term capital at a relatively lower cost.
The Human Rights Court in Accra has asked management of the Korle Bu Teaching Hospital to resolve their differences with its former Director of Pharmacy, Elizabeth Bruce. Now, in May this year, Mrs. Bruce and other staff were dismissed for misappropriating nearly 1 million Ghana cedis at the hospital's pharmacy department following an audit. But Mrs. Bruce went to court challenging the decision. She says the case of financial impropriety brought against her lacked factual basis. Fred Smith was in court today and joins me in the studio with more on this. So Fred, what does the court mean when it says management of Korle Bu should actually resolve their differences with Madam Bruce?
Well, let me give you a background to what happened today in court and leading to the decision. What happened was that all parties in this case were present in court except the board chairman of Korle Bu Teaching Hospital, who is supposed to be a party to the suit that's been filed, Dr. Anthony Salah. He was not present because he had not been served with the writ yet, and he has to be served before he can make an appearance in court. So the court, in its wisdom, said, well, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's give him about 2 weeks, so we will serve him. The plaintiffs will find a way of serving him. Within that 2-week period, he believes that the case that's being contested in the courts, and he thinks that it can be resolved. It's a case of alleged financial malfeasance. It can be resolved. And Mrs. Bruce's case that's been brought to the court is challenging her dismissal. That can also be resolved. So the judge in his wisdom says, resolve this matter within 2 weeks or we proceed with the case proper. And the reason why the judge is taking this is that these days the courts are congested, and there's a whole program by the Chief Justice to decongest the courts. And so if there are cases in courts that can be adjudicated outside of the court, it's always encouraged. And so that's why they've asked them to try an out-of-court settlement of this matter. If it works, yes, in 2 weeks on the 23rd of July, they will go back to court and report to it. Otherwise, it will proceed as it is.
I see. And I'm told you've also been following up on the strike action by state attorneys. What's the state today?
Well, we expected this to have an impact on cases that involved the state. So where the state is supposed to defend itself or press charges against someone, we expected that the state lawyers, who are the state attorneys, won't be there to defend us or to prosecute on our behalf. And exactly that's what is happening, except at the lower courts where the police prosecutors are actually prosecuting. So a case, for instance, like the one involving the Amanfrom armed robbers who were arrested a few days ago, that case is ongoing because you have police prosecutors. But you remember the case by the Food Sovereignty Ghana, the CPP, and the Vegetarians Association of Ghana, trying to get an injunction against the commercial introduction of genetically modified foods. That case was called today in court, and what happened was that the state lawyers were not present to defend us because the Agric Ministry is a party to it, and also the Biosafety Authority is also another party, and all of those institutions are supposed to be represented by the state, in this case the state attorneys, and so that case has been affected. It's been adjourned, even though the CPP brought a fresh motion on the case. The judge considered the fact that the government is not present to respond or defend the public, to defer the case to the 22nd day of July.
I see. We'll continue this discussion subsequently. That was my colleague Fred Smith bringing us up to speed on that one. Time now for us to check out the very latest in the world of sports.
Good afternoon. My name is Benedict Owusu. You're still here on News Today, and it's now time to talk sports. And our first story, Asamoah has arrived at the Pudong Airport to a huge crowd as he nears the completion of his mega move to ambitious Chinese club Shanghai CSIPG. Now, Jan touched down at the Pudong at 3:30 p.m. local time to a rapturous reception. The Black Stars captain made quick halts for spot interviews and signed some autographs as he made his way through a sea of affectionate supporters of his prospective new employers. He will undergo a medical before signing onto a contract later today. So we still stay with the Asamoah transfer, and Nigeria's Emmanuel Emenike is set for a loan move to Al-Ain in the UAE to replace Asamoah. Now Emenike is due to arrive in the UAE on Thursday to complete a season-long loan from Turkish side Fenerbahce. The deal will include an option for Al-Ain to buy Emenike at the end of the loan. The 28-year-old, who only scored 4 league goals in 27 matches, has a lot to live up to during his 4 years in the UAE, as Jan scored 95 goals in 83 appearances. So we'll come back home and we'll do some local stories now. And Accra Heartful coach Herbert Addo has challenged his players to show their worth in order to improve their position on the league table. That's the First Capital Plus Premier League table, with 9 matches left to end the season. Now the Phobians have been struggling in the league as they lie 12 with 26 points. Herbert Addo, who has been criticized heavily for their poor display, wants his players to double up their efforts.
My problem is not pressure from outside supporters or anything. My problem is with my players. They have to perform. In Tallinn, they perform. Some matches they play very well, but then the problem is goal scoring. And those who are coming to training, some supporters coming, and they were amazed. You know, the sessions we had, the goal scoring ability, etc. But when you come here, they don't score. So why? Is it the coach? Is it the field? Is it who? I remember last week somebody asked, Coach, Moti Akuma. He said, oh, I'm sorry. My players name. Once Moti Akuma. It is so wrong to do. So we have to work together so that new supporters, we don't team Akuma.
So that was Accra Heartful coach Herbert Addo. Now the Elite Cup competition will resume this afternoon after a few weeks of the novelty competition was introduced when a court case delayed the start of the First Capital Plus Premier League this season. 3 of the 8 scheduled games are not taking place as a result of the teams involved engaging in other commitment. The likes of Kumasi Asante Kotoko will not be playing, but the matches to expect this afternoon, Dunkwa United will come up against New Dubiase. Mediama SC will take on Accra Heartful at the Takwa TNA Park, and at the Dansuman Karindorf Park, Liberty Professionals will play host to Heart of Lions in an all-Premier League encounter. So we'll bring you more on that. So away from the first, the Elite Cup competition, we can do some more news, and this time let's switch our attention to athletics. And the Ghana Athletics Association has predicted Youth Olympic medalist Martha Bisa may fail to qualify for this year's All-Africa Games in Congo-Brazzaville. Now Martha Bisa, whose manager complained days ago about neglect by the association has failed to consistently record any time close to what aided her and next gold in China last year in the Youth Olympics. Now, the Ghana Athletics Association also debunked claims her development has been stifled as a result of deliberate attempt to place impediment in securing her any scholarships to train abroad. The athletics governing body put it blunt, insisting Martha Bisa and her manager, that's Mickey Osei-Berkon, popularly known as Master Richard, have pressed the self-destruct button. Now, Erasmus Kwao is Public Relations Officer of the Ghana Athletics Association.
I come out to make defamatory statements about the GAA, that we send our athletes to the USA and we neglect them. We don't look after them again. He said a GAA member asked Martha Bisa to part ways with 7,000 cedis so that that member could get her a scholarship. Again, that issue was raised at a meeting we had with him. At the end of the day, he admitted his guilt and said he was going to apologize for all these issues and then come out properly for us to look at Martha Bisa. Up to now, we've not heard from Mickey Osei-Berkon. Okay. This issue about neglect, that's not coming. We wanted Martha to go to the next level, and that's how come the GAA went through its networks and found her scholarship. All she needed to do was to bring out her WASI results. It's based on your academic qualifications that the schools in the USA will look at you. Up to now, we don't have those results.
Well, there is more sports at 2 with Nathaniel Ato on Sports Today. My name is Benedict, so enjoy the rest of the program.
Buyer beware. That's the latest caution from the police about merchandise such as home theaters, wristwatches, mobile phones without charges, and other valuables being offered for sale, often off the streets by sometimes very suspicious characters. Now, the warning from the Accra Region Police is that you could be prosecuted for patronizing such sales. Now, it follows the arrest of 2 of 5 armed robbers who went on rampage at a Manfom here in Accra last weekend.
2. Isaac Kenye, a 25-year-old Tyler from Togo, and David Aheto, also a 25-year-old watchman from the Volta region, were arrested on June 3 and 4. They, together with 3 others, are said to have raided more than 10 homes in the Amanfrom community, robbing residents of valuables and injuring about 8.
I
was asleep when I heard gunshots. Then while inside, they broke down the door. They had guns and they managed to take away 700 cedis.
Oh, Jesus.
When they took the money, they asked for more. Because I didn't have, they wanted to sleep with me. But when I took off the cloth, they inflicted my back with a cutlass.
There were others, however, who were not so lucky.
The investigation also revealed that 3 victims of the robbery attack were raped at gunpoint.
Accra Region Police Commander DCOP Christian Tete Yohonu described how one of the suspects, David, was arrested, getting ready to embark on one more expedition at Amanfrom. He was said to have been found in possession of some of the items used in the first robbery: a single-barrel gun, 60 rounds of live ammunition, locally manufactured pistols, face mask, wig, and hand gloves. Isaac, on the other hand, was arrested in the process of selling the stolen items at the Liberian refugee camp at Bujumburam.
The police is cautioning members of the public to desist from patronizing items such as mobile phones, laptops without chargers, iPad, digital cameras, flat screen televisions, home theaters, wristwatches, and similar valuables, which are usually offered for sale by suspicious characters at low prices.
The police, meanwhile, is appealing to the public to volunteer information that will help them arrest the other robbers.
The general public is also advised to be extra vigilant in their neighborhoods and without hesitation report the slightest suspicion of strange characters to the police for prompt action.
It sounds like something from a witty advert. That's people climbing tall trees just so they can make and receive calls. Now, in Akadwaso, copywriters do not need to create this reality. People actually climb trees with their mobile phones just to place calls. Haruna Isivumpini reports.
In the Etiwa district of the eastern region lies the town of Akaduaso. 1,000 people live here and none of them have functional mobile phone networks. The young boys on this tree are not searching for fruits, but the ever-elusive network connection. All 5 mobile phone service providers have practically zero reception here. Even when precariously perched on a tree, voice clarity is nil. Residents are understandably worried about continuing to live in this communications black hole.
In case of any emergency, we will be unable to call for help. All the existing networks don't work here. We need the government's intervention.
We have to climb trees in order to make and receive calls. It is absurd. We need help.
Chief of Akaduaso community, Berima Odeidria II, says he does not understand why a big town like Akaduaso doesn't have network connections. He hopes the Ministry of Communication will listen to the plight of his subjects and do something about the situation.
This big town doesn't have access to telecommunication network. We are cut off from the rest of the country. We are appealing to the appropriate authorities to come to our aid.
All efforts made in getting in touch with the network providers to respond to the issue prove futile. Haruna Yusuf Wumpuni's report from the Eastern region.
Before we go, Tunisia has announced plans to build a wall along its border with Libya to counter the threat from jihadist militants. It would stretch 160 kilometers, that's approximately 100 miles inland from the coast, and be completed by the end of 2015. Tunisian Prime Minister Habib Essid told State TV the gunman who killed 38 people in an attack on a beach resort is believed to have received training in Libya. Well, for more news, do want to log on to myjournalline.com. That'll be it for the bulletin here on Joy News Multi TV. My name is Kobna Chencheni Boateng. Have a good afternoon.